Hey guys, how are you doing? I'm excited to give Danny Gudov a break this week and to pick up the next subject that we're going over in Homegroups. I'm excited to talk about this subject, especially considering that right now concurrently we're in the book of Romans, and kind of spoke about this last week in the sermon, and we're briefly touched on this subject. We're talking about witnessing as in spreading the gospel and sharing the gospel with other people. Wanted us to open up our Bibles, and we're going to read out of Mark chapter 5, verses 18 through 19. Scripture says this: As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. This is talking about a man who got freed from the demons that went into the pigs. Jesus did not let him, but he said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." This is biblical scripture on witnessing. Another amazing place in the Bible talks about us witnessing is Psalm 96:3. The NIV says, "Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples." I think, we turn witnessing into a lot of things, but if you want to just really break it down, what witnessing is biblically, it's looking at Jesus, taking a really good look at Jesus, what he's doing, what he has done in your life, doing in other people's life, and then just going and telling other people about Jesus and what he does and what he did for you and what he's doing for other people. That's all it is. It's really goes down to the core meaning of the word witness. We observe something, we see something first person, and then we can testify to that fact of what we have seen and what we have observed. And so sometimes we try to create something out of sharing the gospel that just simply doesn't exist. We try to turn it into something convoluted, where we've argue with people and pick fights about this being right or that being wrong, or dissecting different things about the scripture, whether this was really what the author meant, or maybe this is what he meant, or that's theologically correct or not. There's a place for all that stuff in the church, but when it comes to witnessing, it's really simply sharing your testimony about what the gospel has done in your life, what the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, what he has done in your life. And it's very simple. Everybody has a testimony. If you have been saved and met Jesus and experienced the power of the gospel, there's things in your life that witness to that. You have something to share about that. And so feel free just to share it. And if you're looking over your life, like right now, you're sitting in your home group and you're thinking, you're like, man, I really have nothing to say. I just maybe want to encourage you to take a step in faith and to accept the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. It's one thing to be around Christian people. It's one thing to go to a church, but there's a whole nother thing to accept the gospel of Jesus Christ. What does that mean? That means you step forward and you realize that, hey, I don't have everything together. I have some garbage in my life. I have sin in my life. I have mistakes in my life. I'm struggling with stuff. And the only way I'm going to be made right is by accepting his gospel. I'm going to reach out in faith, and I'm going to accept God's promises and God's forgiveness for my life and let him lead me in life. And that will be the beginning of your testimony that you're going to be able to share with somebody else. The next thing I want to talk about is that witnessing doesn't have to be awkward. Oftentimes, us sharing the gospel is some of the most awkward moments that we have in our life. We're trying to figure out how to start a conversation, where to start it from, what to do. And one of the most unfortunate things is sometimes when we're in our zeal to be evangelists, all we're doing is picking emotional arguments, or we're just overwhelming people with information and getting very argumentative with them. I remember this place in scripture where Jesus, obviously talking about something a little bit different, talking about the hypocrisy of the Pharisees, but it says, you guys go around the world and find one convert, right? And then turn him into somebody that's worse than yourself. So it's really important to understand just the power of the gospel alone, the power of hope, the power of good news, the power of redemption, the power of healing that the gospel carries. and to simply present it as that, and not to present it as some sort of religious ordeal. Sometimes the best opportunities for witnessing really come out of, those moments where you've experienced something from God and you're full of excitement because of that and you want to share it. Take advantage of those moments, because in those times and moments, you're full of hope, you're full of excitement, you're full of thanksgiving, and that's contagious. Now, the other thing is, instead of trying to press the gospel into somebody's life when they're not ready for it, it's important to take advantage of divine appointments. We spoke about this last week during the service. I wanted just to reemphasize this. Divine appointments are so important. Sometimes we're trying to stuff the gospel into somebody's life when they're just not willing or ready or wanting to accept it. And instead, all that happens is they end up just basically walking all over that gospel and, desecrating it, not taking it seriously. Instead, there's people right next to us who are hurting, who are in pain, who need hope, who need healing, who need forgiveness, who need redemption, who are about to give up, and they're perfect and they're ready and they're seasoned to hear the good news of the gospel, because that's exactly what they need to hear in their life. And I just want to encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities. And one of the things that I wanted you guys to do, just as a group, as you break up right now, is to do this thing, to kind of sit down and to talk about, what do divine appointments look like? What are some of the divine appointments you've had in your life where you've been able to share the gospel? How do you notice situations or opportunities for a divine appointment? How do you open up your heart so it's sensitive to seeing people's need, hurt, and pain, and being ready to share the gospel into their life? The next thing I want you guys to do is I want you guys to share your personal testimony. What is your testimony? It doesn't necessarily have to be the testimony of your salvation, but maybe just a testimony of what God has done for you or for your family or for a loved one. Something that's been key in building up your faith and seeing the power of the gospel in your life. Something that has built you up. Something that has given you hope. Something that's changed or turned around your life. And something that you can share with somebody else to encourage them. And the last thing I want you guys to do as a home group is I want you guys to get together and everybody to grab a paper and a pencil and to sit down and each one of you guys to think about one person in your life that right now is in your life and they're ready and they're ripe to hear the gospel and the good news of Jesus Christ. And I want you guys to write down that name, and I want you to pray over that name as a home group. And then in this coming week, to go into that person's life, to reach out to them. Maybe it's somebody you haven't seen for a while, but they're struggling. To give them a phone call, to ask them how they're doing, and to share with them the hope and the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. God bless you guys, and see you again in a week.